Every single night, at exactly 3 in the morning, a light turns on in the house next door. The strange part? Nobody lives there. The house is completely empty. One curious teacher decides she cannot ignore it any longer. Tonight, she is going to walk across the yard and find out who or what is turning on that light. Stay with me until the end, and you will not only know how the mystery ends, you will also know 8 words that native speakers use every single day. Let's meet them first. The words. Neighbor. A person who lives near you, especially in the house next to yours. My neighbor waters my plants whenever I travel.
Curtain.
A piece of cloth that hangs over a window to cover it. She closed the curtain so no one could see inside.
Porch.
A covered area at the front door of a house, often with a few steps. We sat on the porch and watched the rain.
Knock.
To hit a door with your hand so someone knows you are there. Please knock before you come into my office. Doorbell. A button beside a door that makes a sound inside the house. He pressed the doorbell twice, but nobody came. Empty. Having nothing or no one inside. The house stood empty for months after they moved away.
Shadow.
A dark shape made when something blocks the light. A tall shadow moved slowly across the wall.
Brave.
Not afraid to do something difficult or frightening. It takes a brave person to knock on a stranger's door. The light next door. Nora was a schoolteacher who lived alone on a quiet, sleepy street. Most nights she stayed up late, grading her students' papers with a red pen and a cup of tea. One night, she simply could not sleep. At 3 in the morning, she stood at her window and looked out at the street, hoping the quiet would make her tired. The house right next to hers had been empty for months. An old woman had once lived there, but she had passed away, and no one had moved in since. And yet, as Nora watched, a light suddenly turned on in an upstairs window. A warm, yellow light, glowing softly behind a thin curtain. She held her breath. Behind the curtain something moved. A tall shadow crossed the glass, slow and quiet, and then it was gone. 20 minutes later, the light turned off again. The house was dark and empty once more. Nora told herself it was nothing, just her tired eyes playing tricks. But the next night, it happened again. 3 in the morning, exactly. The light, the shadow behind the curtain, and then darkness. Now Nora could not stop thinking about it. Who was inside that empty house? And why only at 3 in the morning? The next day, she asked her other neighbors about the house. They only shrugged. Nobody lives there, they said. It's been empty since the old lady died. That answer only made her more curious. Every night after that, Nora waited by her window, watching for the light like a child waiting for a secret. She began to notice small things. The old porch with its wooden rocking chair, the dust on the windows, and every night, at 3, the same warm light. Finally, one night, Nora made a decision. She was tired of guessing. She was going to be brave. She was going to find out the truth herself. In her slippers and cardigan, she stepped out into the cold night. Her heart was pounding as she crossed the dark yard toward the empty house. She climbed the wooden steps and stood on the porch. Up close, the light in the window seemed even warmer, even more alive. Someone was definitely inside. With a shaking hand, she pressed the doorbell. It rang somewhere deep inside the house, and then silence.
No footsteps.
No answer at all. So she raised her hand and began to knock. Knock, knock, knock. Under her hand, the heavy door slowly creaked open. It had not even been locked. "Hello," she called softly. Her voice disappeared into an empty hallway. Moonlight fell across bare floors and blank walls.
No furniture.
No people. But at the top of the stairs, Warm light spilled from a doorway. Being braver than she had ever been, Nora climbed the steps toward it, one slow foot at a time. At the top, she looked into a small room, and there, sitting quietly beside an old lamp, was a man. He was holding a framed photograph in both hands. The man turned. They stared at each other, both completely frozen. For one long second, neither of them made a single sound. But the man was not frightening at all. His tired face broke into a soft, embarrassed smile. "I'm so sorry," he said gently. "I didn't mean to scare anyone." "My name is Sam," he said quietly. Nora let out a breath she did not know she was holding. "I'm Nora," she answered. "I live next door." Sam looked down at the photograph in his hands. "This was my mother's house," he said. "She lived here for almost 40 years. I work the night shift," he went on. "Every night, my mother left a light on for me, so that when I came home at 3 in the morning, the house was never dark." "She passed away a few months ago," Sam said softly. "Now the house is empty. The furniture is gone, but I still have the key. So after every shift, I come here," he explained. "At 3 in the morning, I turn on her light, and I sit for a little while. Then I go home. It makes me feel that she is still near," he said, "that someone is still waiting up for me. I know it sounds foolish." Nora shook her head slowly. In that moment, all of Nora's fear melted into something warm. The mystery she had been so afraid of was simply a son who missed his mother. The shadow behind the curtain, the light at 3 a.m., the empty house. None of it was frightening anymore. It was quietly one of the kindest things she had ever heard. The very next night, Nora did something small. Before she went to bed, she left her own porch light on, glowing warmly toward the empty house next door. When Sam came home from his shift at 3 a.m., he saw it, a warm porch light left on, just for him. He stopped in the street and smiled. After that, everything changed. Now, when the light next door turned on at 3 in the morning, Nora was not afraid. She smiled. Sometimes she even made coffee. And Nora learned something true. The bravest thing she ever did was not crossing that dark yard. It was knocking on a stranger's door and finding a friend. Now let's review our 8 words, this time using the sentences straight from the story. Neighbor, a person who lives near you. "I'm Nora," she answered. "I live next door." She was his new neighbor.
Curtain.
Cloth that covers a window. A warm, yellow light glowed softly behind a thin curtain.
Porch.
The covered area at a front door. She climbed the wooden steps and stood on the porch.
Knock.
To hit a door with your hand. She raised her hand and began to knock, and the door slowly creaked open.
Doorbell.
The button that rings inside a house. She pressed the doorbell, and then silence. No answer at all. Empty. Having no one inside. The house right next to hers had been empty for months. Shadow. A dark shape blocking the light. Behind the curtain, a tall shadow crossed the glass, slow and quiet.
Brave.
Not afraid of something frightening. She was tired of guessing. She was going to be brave and find out the truth herself. Question 1. Why did the light in the empty house turn on every night at 3 a.m.? A. A son visited his late mother's house after his night shift. B. A ghost was living in the house. C. Nora kept forgetting to turn it off. D. Robbers were hiding inside. The answer is, a son visited his late mother's house after his night shift. Sam came to his late mother's empty house after every night shift, turned on her light, and sat for a while to feel close to her. Question 2. What did Nora finally do to solve the mystery? A. She called the police. B. She knocked on the door and went inside. C. She moved to a different street D. She decided to ignore it forever. The answer is, she knocked on the door and went inside. Nora was brave. She crossed the yard, rang the doorbell, knocked, and stepped into the house to find the truth herself. Question 3. How did Nora feel about the light by the end of the story? A. Still terrified of it. B. No longer afraid. She smiled and sometimes made coffee. C. Angry at Sam for scaring her. D. Confused and unsure. The answer is, no longer afraid. She smiled and sometimes made coffee. Once she understood the truth, her fear turned to warmth. She even left her porch light on for Sam and shared coffee with him. Time for the Fireside Challenge. In one single sentence, describe the ending of today's story in your own words. Try to use at least one of our words, maybe brave, neighbor, or empty. Write your sentence in the comments and read what other learners write too. I read every one. You were brave to learn 8 new words with me tonight, and I'm proud of you. Leave your porch light on, be kind to the neighbor next door, and I'll see you in the next story.
Good night.